Now, Donald Trump ordered the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on January the 3rd. Now, weeks later, the most explosive part of that operation is only now emerging. In a series of television interviews, the US president has confirmed that American forces used what he called a secret sonic weapon.
Caribbean Sea, international waters, 2:47 p.m. Local time, broad daylight, perfect visibility. USS Gravely, Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, transiting at standard patrol speed through international waters 37 nautical miles from the Venezuelan coast. Counter-narcotics mission, routine freedom of navigation operation. All movements clearly documented by satellite. Maritime tracking systems, international observers. Blue sky, calm seas, afternoon sun creating perfect conditions for photography. Radar tracking, witness testimony. Then Venezuelan radar locked on. One patrol vessel emerged from coastal waters. Guaiquerí-class ocean patrol boat, 79 meters long, armed with a 76mm Otto Melara deck gun and Oerlikon Millennium 35mm close-in weapon system. Displacement 1,720 tons. Crew of 60. Cost $85 million when Venezuela could still afford new ships. Range closing. Speed 30 knots. Heading directly toward the American destroyer. All movements visible in afternoon sun. All intentions becoming unmistakable. At 2:51 p.m. the Venezuelan vessel opened fire. Boom, boom, boom. 376mm shells, splashing into water 70 meters from USS Gravely's bow.
During the raid on Caracas, Trump gave no technical details, but he left no doubt about the message.
We have weapons nobody else knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about it, but we have some amazing weapons. That was an amazing attack.
Well, those words have triggered global alarm and a growing debate over what really happened on the ground that night. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, shared what she described as testimony from a Venezuelan security guard who survived the raid. The account said US forces released a powerful wave of sound. It felt like my head was exploding, the guard claimed. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground and could not move. Well, now the US has not provided medical records, forensic evidence, or independent verification of that claim, but it has not denied it either. And that has drawn an immediate response from Moscow. Russia says it wants clarification over Trump's comments. The Kremlin spokesperson says Russian intelligence services are now examining the claim.
We have the relevant
water columns erupting in clear afternoon light. Explosions clearly visible. Photographed by multiple systems. Documented. Undeniable. Not a warning shot fired across the bow in safe direction. Not accidental discharge during training. Not equipment malfunction. A provocation. Designed to test American response. Force the destroyer out of international waters. Demonstrate Venezuelan willingness to escalate. Create footage for domestic propaganda showing Maduro's forces challenging U.S. Navy warships and forcing them to withdraw. Caracas believed they had calculated perfectly. One American destroyer, isolated in Caribbean waters, surrounded by Venezuelan coastal defenses, 12 miles from friendly ports. Fire warning shots. Force course change. Claim victory. Humiliate Washington. The mathematics seemed favorable from Venezuela's perspective. But Venezuela made 4 catastrophic miscalculations. First, USS Gravely wasn't isolated. 2 Virginia-class attack submarines were tracking below, silent, invisible, feeding continuous tactical data via encrypted data link. Second, the destroyer's Aegis combat system had been tracking the Venezuelan vessel for 47 minutes before it opened fire. Every movement recorded. Fire control solutions already calculated. Weapons assignment already determined. Third, a US P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft was orbiting 60 miles north. Sensors active, data linking everything to Fleet Command in real time. Satellite coverage comprehensive.
services whose tasks include collecting and analyzing information on this matter. They are doing their work. But in this case, it will probably still be necessary for us to hear clarifications about what the President of the United States means.
So what exactly are these sonic weapons? They're devices that use powerful sound or focused energy instead of bullets. Their purpose is to overwhelm the human body and senses, hitting your hearing, balance and nervous system. The most widely used version is called a long-range acoustic device, or LRAD. It looks like a flat speaker and fires a narrow beam of extremely loud sound in one direction. Inside that beam, the noise can be louder than a jet engine. The devices release a piercing tone that causes pain, dizziness, confusion and panic. At close range, people can feel unable to think, move or stand. The US military has used them in Iraq, on Navy ships and to guard military bases. But they're meant to be non-lethal. They're loud and disorienting, but they're...
Fourth, restraint isn't weakness. It's choice. And choice backed by overwhelming capability is the most dangerous position an adversary can face. What happened in the next 31 minutes became the most precise display of controlled naval force in Caribbean operations since the Cold War. This is that story. Background: the Caribbean theater. The Caribbean has been a counter-narcotics battle space for decades. U.S. Navy destroyers patrol international waters, interdicting drug shipments, monitoring smuggling routes, maintaining freedom of navigation, legal operations, documented operations, operations conducted in full view of satellite surveillance and international observers. The numbers tell the story. $20 billion in narcotics transit these waters annually. Cocaine from Colombia, synthetic drugs from clandestine labs, all moving north toward American markets through Caribbean shipping lanes that Venezuela increasingly claims as territorial waters despite international law stating otherwise. USS Gravely had been operating in these waters for 6 weeks as part of Operation Southern Spear, 17 ships deployed.
Not designed to cause internal bleeding, and that's why the claims from Venezuela have raised doubts. But what is certain is that the operation was deadly. Venezuela says at least 83 people were killed. Cuba says 32 of its security forces died. And the White House confirmed that at least 7 US service members were injured. Maduro and his wife were captured and flown out of the country. The technology used to make that happen remains classified. Was there really a secret sonic weapon? Or was it something conventional that was misunderstood during the chaos and confusion? Or was it a message aimed not just at Venezuela, but at America's rivals around the world? Well, Trump has put the claim out there, and it may be shrouded in secrecy. But questions over the use of any possible new sonic weapon will continue to be loud.
4,000 sailors and Marines. The mission: disrupt Venezuelan drug trafficking networks, maintain American presence, demonstrate that international waters remain international regardless of Caracas's threats. By October 2025, the operation had interdicted 43 drug shipments, seized 18 vessels, confiscated 17 tons of cocaine, all without firing a shot. Professional, documented, legal. But Venezuela was escalating. For 3 weeks, Venezuelan patrol boats had been conducting gray zone harassment, approaching American ships, transmitting warnings claiming jurisdiction over waters 200 miles from their coast, testing boundaries, probing reactions, building toward confrontation. Each encounter pushing slightly further, each provocation slightly more aggressive, each incident carefully filmed for domestic consumption in Caracas, where economic collapse and political isolation made any victory over American forces valuable propaganda. Intelligence indicated Caracas was seeking an incident, something they could film, something they could use domestically to demonstrate defiance of American power, show that Maduro's government wouldn't be intimidated by U.S. Navy warships operating in their Caribbean. The Venezuelan Navy had been waiting for the right opportunity: an isolated American ship, good weather for filming, enough distance from U.S. bases that immediate reinforcement would be impossible. They thought they'd found it. October 23rd, 2025, 10:30 a.m. USS Gravely received flash traffic from U.S. Southern Command Headquarters in Doral, Florida. Intelligence indicated possible Venezuelan provocation. Patrol vessel sorting from Puerto Cabello. Armed. Intent unknown but assessed as hostile based on communication intercepts and satellite observation of weapons loading. Commander Sarah Mitchell, Gravely's captain, ordered heightened readiness. She keyed the ship-wide announcing system, "All hands. This is the captain. Venezuelan naval activity elevated in our operating area. We remain in international waters conducting lawful operations. Maintain professional posture. All weapon systems to full readiness." This may get interesting. What Commander Mitchell didn't tell her crew, intelligence suggested Venezuela was planning a public confrontation. Fire warning shots. Force American withdrawal. Film the entire encounter. Use it for domestic propaganda. Create an incident that would rally support for Maduro's government. The Americans knew it was coming. They just didn't know exactly when.
The U.S. Coast Guard announcing it seized 2 more oil tankers near Venezuela this week. The American naval presence in the Caribbean still nearby. Even weeks after U.S. forces seized President Nicolas Maduro, memorialized on billboards in the capital. Many people in the country saying they're anxious. This man explains he's waiting to see what happens next.
Last week we picked up 50 million barrels from Venezuela alone.
During his World Economic Forum speech, American President Donald Trump announced the U.S. had started selling Venezuelan oil. The country's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, saying it's brought in $300 million US, which the government will use to prop up citizens' income. Though this woman says when salaries go up, prices...
1:15 p.m. First contact. The Venezuelan patrol vessel appeared on radar. Guaiquerí-class boat. Displacement 1,720 tons. Armed with 1 Otto Melara 76mm gun. 1 Oerlikon Millennium 35mm CIWS, 2 12, 7mm machine guns, capable of carrying a helicopter though none was embarked. Crew approximately 60. Cost $85 million when purchased in 2009. The vessel maintained distance initially, shadowing Gravely at 12,000 meters, transmitting warnings over maritime radio channels monitored by every ship in the region. The warnings claimed the American destroyer was violating Venezuelan territorial waters. False. Gravely was operating 37 nautical miles from Venezuelan coast, well within international waters, clearly documented by GPS positioning, satellite tracking, AIS transponder data, and multiple independent verification systems. Venezuela's 12 nautical mile territorial limit was being scrupulously respected. The American destroyer wasn't even close to questionable waters. But facts matter less than narratives when you're creating propaganda. 2:20 p.m. Escalation. The Venezuelan vessel altered course. Closing angle. Speed increasing to 30 knots. Range decreasing rapidly. Inside Gravely's Combat Information Center, the tactical picture crystallized. The Venezuelan boat wasn't maintaining shadow position. It was maneuvering aggressively. Fire control radar active. Weapons systems energized.
Is also rise.
This is a country with 80% poverty. People were just desperate. I mean, it's very, very difficult to put food on the table when the prices are, doubling from one week to the next.
Analyst Philip Gunson says more U.S. dollars will likely help, but many challenges remain. The Guardian newspaper reporting Thursday, Rodriguez spoke to the states for months before the U.S. removed Maduro, matching other reports. Rodriguez, with her brother Jorge, who controls Venezuela's parliament, now have tremendous power in the country.
They're not remotely interested in political reform, whatever the United States has to say.
Trump has not said the U.S. will work with the opposition, who many countries recognize as having won last year's election.
The bulk of the Venezuelan population are really not represented at the table.
Before seizing Maduro, U.S. officials often referenced his re-election, which they called illegitimate.
At 2:35 p.m. Commander Mitchell activated General Quarters. General Quarters! General Quarters! All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Venezuelan patrol boat closing aggressively. Weapon systems hot. We are authorized defensive engagement if fired upon. Stay sharp. Throughout the ship, sailors sprinted to combat stations. Watertight doors slammed shut. Damage control teams manned their positions. In the Combat Information Center, blue lighting replaced normal illumination. Operators hunched over displays showing perfect tactical clarity. Aegis SPY-1D phased array radar tracked the Venezuelan vessel precisely, position, speed, heading updated every 2-4 seconds. Fire control computers calculated intercept solutions continuously, adjusting for changing geometry. SM-2 surface-to-air missiles loaded in vertical launch cells, capable of engaging surface targets when necessary. Phalanx closed-in weapon system online, 20mm Gatling gun ready to create defensive walls of tungsten if needed. 5-inch Mark 45 deck gun armed and tracking. 96 vertical launch cells, each one capable of launching Tomahawk cruise missiles, SM-2 interceptors, or anti-submarine rockets. The destroyer carried more firepower than the entire Venezuelan surface fleet combined. But firepower wasn't the advantage. Information was. 2:47 p.m. Hostile fire. The Venezuelan vessel closed to 8,000 meters. Then opened fire. Boom! 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 76mm shells. 3 rounds. Splashing into water 70 meters from Gravely's bow. Explosions clearly visible in afternoon sun. Water columns erupting white against blue ocean. Not accidental. Not warning shots in safe direction. Shots deliberately placed to intimidate, to threaten, to force response. Inside the CIC, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The Aegis system automatically classified the Venezuelan vessel as hostile. Fire control solutions updated to reflect active engagement status. Weapons release authorization requested. Commander Mitchell's voice was calm. Acknowledge hostile fire. All defensive systems engage as necessary. Helm, adjust course 015. Increase speed to 25 knots. Create separation. Give them one chance to de-escalate. USS Gravely altered course. Not fleeing, repositioning. Maneuvering into open water where sensor coverage improved. Where engagement geometry favored American systems. Where ambiguity disappeared. Each movement documented. Each second recorded. Everything visible to satellite observers. To the P-8 overhead. To the submarines below. To neutral shipping monitoring maritime distress frequencies. This was tactical geometry. Every course change increased American advantage. Moved the engagement away from coastal clutter where radar performance degraded. Away from shallow waters where submarines couldn't maneuver. Into open ocean where American sensor superiority became overwhelming. The Venezuelan crew saw a destroyer changing course, appearing to create distance. Commander Mitchell saw a chessboard where every piece was moving into optimal firing position. 2:53 p.m. Misinterpretation. The Venezuelan crew interpreted the American maneuver differently. The destroyer hadn't fired back. It had changed course, appeared to be creating distance. To them, this looked like success. Pressure applied. Result achieved. The tactic was working. They radioed Caracas, American vessel maneuvering away from engagement area. Mission successful. Continuing to shadow. They were catastrophically wrong. The Venezuelan vessel maintained pursuit. Closing angle again. Speed unchanged. Aggressive posture sustained. They believed they had the initiative. What they actually had was 30 seconds to live as an operational warship. 2:55 p.m. Authorization. Commander Mitchell received authorization from U.S. Fleet Forces Command via encrypted satellite communication. Gravely, you are cleared for defensive engagement. Neutralize the threat. Minimize escalation. Precision over destruction. Commander Mitchell keyed fire control. Target the Venezuelan vessel. Solution for propulsion and sensors. 1 missile. Disable. Do not destroy. Make this surgical. The distinction mattered. Sinking a Venezuelan patrol boat would create martyrs. Fuel propaganda. Complicate diplomacy. Disabling it would send a different message. We can destroy you whenever we choose. We're choosing not to. Make better decisions. 2:56 p.m. Counterstrike. USS Gravely's Mark 41 vertical launch system activated. Cell doors opened. 1 SM-2 block IIA missile launched. White flame clearly visible in daylight. Rocket motor igniting. Missile climbing vertically. Then pitching over toward target. Semi-active radar guidance locked onto Venezuelan patrol boat superstructure. Not targeting crew quarters. Not targeting ammunition storage. Not targeting the bridge. targeting the vessel's propulsion compartment and sensor array. The Venezuelan crew had approximately 11 seconds to understand what was happening. 11 seconds to realize the American destroyer they thought was retreating had just launched a precision-guided missile. 11 seconds wasn't enough time to do anything except watch it arrive. 2:57 p.m. Impact. The SM-2 struck aft of the Venezuelan vessel superstructure. Precision impact. The 137-pound blast fragmentation warhead detonated exactly where fire control computers had designated. Explosion. Fire. Black smoke visible for miles. Propulsion systems destroyed, diesel engines offline. Controllable pitch propellers disabled. Radar mast damaged. Communications arrays severed. Electronic warfare suite destroyed. The patrol boat lost power. Lost sensors. Lost command and control. Dead in the water. Drifting. Simultaneously, USS Gravely's phalanx CIWS activated autonomously. 2 small unmanned aerial vehicles had been launched from the Venezuelan vessel minutes earlier, reconnaissance drones observing the engagement, transmitting video back to Caracas for propaganda purposes. Phalanx radar locked. 20mm M61 Vulcan cannon rotated. 4,500 rounds per minute. Tungsten penetrator rounds streaking through clear afternoon sky. First drone disintegrated in mid-air. Second destroyed 3 seconds later. Debris falling into ocean. Airspace cleared. Total engagement time, 43 seconds from missile launch to complete neutralization. USS Gravely damage, 0. Venezuelan vessel, propulsion destroyed. Sensors offline. Communications severed. Dead in the water. Crew alive. Ship intact but completely neutralized as a military threat. 3:01 p.m. Aftermath. Commander Mitchell radioed U.S. Southern Command, Venezuelan vessel disabled. No longer a threat. Monitoring for rescue operations. Request medical assistance be made available if needed. The response came immediately. Gravely. Maintain position. Coast Guard assets being coordinated with Venezuelan Navy for rescue. Document everything. This one's going to be studied for decades. Within minutes, Venezuelan state media began broadcasting claims of American aggression. Unprovoked attack on peaceful patrol vessel. Destroyer firing on smaller ship conducting lawful coastal defense operations. Complete fabrication. But satellite imagery told the truth. High-resolution photographs captured in perfect afternoon lighting by multiple reconnaissance satellites and the P-8 Poseidon overhead. Venezuelan vessel firing first. Shells clearly visible splashing near USS Gravely. American destroyer maneuvering to create separation, not fleeing. Repositioning. Venezuelan vessel pursuing aggressively despite American attempts to de-escalate. Precise American counterstrike. 1 missile. Surgical impact. Vessel disabled but not destroyed. All visible. All documented. All undeniable. Global reaction. Within hours, the world knew Venezuelan patrol boat fires on U.S. destroyer in international waters.